So now that you've seen our original Wari fragment, I'm going to show you a little bit of how it was made, at least how they set up the loom, the frame that it was woven on, so that they could have the stepped triangle shape and they could have the different step triangles interlock with each other, be able to be taken apart and put back together again. We know that the Wari used a frame loom. This is a very small version of a frame loom. They would have probably used sticks stuck in the ground because they made these mantles on a very large scale. So this little canvas without its painting canvas on it serves to be a small version of that. And the way that they were able to make these pieces both interlock and be separable is instead of weaving on the wooden part, they actually wove on these threads called scaffold threads. They attached the vertical threads, called the warp for weaving, to these, and then they passed the horizontal threads this way, and at the end, you can just untie these and pull them right out of the fabric. So you have a collapsible puzzle of a piece. Now, we're not exactly sure how they set this up. I've used a couple modern materials. For example, we've got some nails here, and they did not have bright green acrylic yarn. I chose this color so you can see. And one of the current ways of thinking about it, and the method that I'm going to use, is I'm going to put these bars here on the nails, and what I'm going to do is wrap the warp threads around the bars and the scaffolds. Because one of the difficult things about weaving on thread is you need to pull hard to get the warp, the vertical threads, nice and even and stiff so that you can work with them and they don't pull all apart and flex all around. But with thread, as you can see, you pull and it pulls down with you, it gives. So when I set up by going around the bars give a little bit of push so that when I'm wrapping the warp threads around, I don't have to worry quite so much about them all pulling to the middle and sinking down. All right, we're gonna get started. So I've got my hand spun and plied alpaca thread that we're gonna be using to put the warps on. And I'm gonna start in this corner. I'm going to tie the thread on. There's a lot of different ways of setting up frame looms, so other people probably do this differently. This is how I start. Probably fine. And I'm going to start with the biggest step. So I'm going to go all the way up here and see how I've got to go above the bars. And drop back around. So my warp thread is kind of fighting me too. And be careful not to pull too hard. It is so tempting to pull hard. It is one of the most difficult parts of weaving anything, I find, is the temptation to pull. I'm going to hold that there. We're going to go one more time. Then the fun part starts. All right. It's hard to keep the bars on because they're not fastened anyways. One of the things that I think they might have done is tied the bars to the stakes because they didn't have the nails. So that's a possibility. All right, we've done our first two warps here. Now I have to stop and do a couple of things. One is that you can already see here a little bit how the threads are pulling this up. If I keep going like that, it's going to end up like this. So what you do, and I might have to move my weights a little bit, is secure this bottom thread. If I can do it without all my bars falling off the loom. And if you look very closely at the Wari fragment, you can count that they did this every 2 warps. They secured the thread down. Make sure I'm not getting caught in here. Which it's time consuming. And the first time I tried this, I didn't do that and realized at the end that there's a reason why you have to do this. Get my ties down. Now that I've secured this bottom thread, I get to start setting up our second step triangle that's going to interlock with the one down here. The one down here is going to look like this. And the one up here is going to look like this. Down, down. It's like 2 puzzle pieces that are going to fit together. And so I'm going to start the smallest step of the second triangle up here. The same way I've tied on my warp thread. And my thread's getting a little out of control. I'm going to do the exact same thing. You're going to go over the bar. Try to pull it just enough down. And these 2 are sharing a bar. This triangle, the big step on the bottom, is sharing the bar with the small step on the top. I'm going to do 2 warps, just like I did on the bottom. And now it's time to start our big one again. So you'll see these 2 as they grow, interlock more and more as we go down. And even though these 2 triangles are sharing this bar, they're not permanently attached to each other. So when I pull the bar out and then finally I pull our scaffold thread out, they're going to pop apart like they were made separately.